Hold 1 second, boss. Did you start the tape?
Yes, it started.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see it pop.
I'm sorry, my bad.
I'm sorry. Nope,
We've
it's okay.
begun recording. Very good. So just call to order the special meeting of the Municipal Accountability Review Board for August 29, 2024. Is David Taylor with us today? Just want to welcome David back. Is he in Mr. Spreyer's room there, or? Anyway, hello, David. If you're within sound of our voice, welcome back.
David is not with us, but he's on his own computer.
Okay. I don't see him on my screen, but greetings to David. So this is a special meeting. Just a reminder to the MARB members and to any speakers, please speak clearly so that your comments will be recorded for the minutes. Since this is a special MARB meeting focusing on West Haven, members were emailed copies of the Hartford City and Public Schools financial reports. And if you have questions about those, you can direct those to the staff at your convenience. We obviously will see the City of Hartford at our October meeting, which is our next scheduled meeting. Does the Treasurer's representative have any opening comments?
I do not, but thank you.
Okay. You're not on my screen, but you're somewhere in the ether. Okay, that's good. We'll start then with the approval of the minutes, which is item 2 on our agenda. You have draft minutes of the June 27, 2024 special meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Saliciano, so moved.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Weisselberg. Any discussion of those minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Any abstentions? Motion carries. How about the draft minutes that were distributed for the July 10, 2024 special meeting? Entertain a motion
Saliciano,
to...
so moved.
Second? Seconded by Mr. Hamilton by gesture. I saw that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on then to the City of West Haven agenda today. It's a fairly lengthy agenda, but we'll hope to get through it. It's mostly contracts that needed to be seen to in the near term. But before that, we've got the FY23 audit reports and an update on the FY24 audit from the city. And I understand that Mr. Centifonti from the PKF O'Connor Davies firm, it will be providing an overview of the audit for FY23. And I think there's a PowerPoint presentation that I assume we can share our screen. People can follow along with that. I think that copies were, the PowerPoint were distributed, to the members. And we do have email copies of the City of West Haven's audited financial reports and management letter issued by PKF. So there's Mayor Borer.
Thank you, Secretary Beckham. Do you think I could give my mayor's update before the audit?
Sure. I
Would that be
understand.
okay?
You have to leave early today.
I do.
Okay.
And hello, everyone, and hope you're all doing well. I'm not doing as well as I would have hoped this week. Monday morning was taking my dog for a walk. We go out every morning around 5 a.m. and he chased an animal and took me down the stairs with him. And so I had a pretty good fall and broke my shoulder and hurt my jaw, my knee, my elbow, everything. So I'm going to give my update because there's a lot of good things happening, but need to drop off because I'm going to head over to an ortho surgeon. So hopefully you all understand and you're in good hands with the team there. So I just want to start off just talking a little bit about the finances. I know Michael's going to give a thorough review, but I wanted to let you know that we are finally fully staffed in our finance department and fully functioning. Our last hire was the internal auditor. That was a position you may recall that we added to the budget, the fiscal year 25 budget. So as of July 1st, we recruited and hired somebody with some fraud experience. She's already hit the ground running, and she's helping to be a liaison with our external auditors, gathering information, and our consultants as well. We also hired a new risk manager, and she started this week as well. And you will be hearing regarding the fiscal year 23 audit by Joe in a few moments. And just a friendly reminder, that is a fiscal year 23 audit. So that's half of 22 and half of 23. So a lot of those comments have been resolved. And we have a tracker that we are using that tracks all of those audit comments that we work on daily together. We have a team that works on that. And Protivity, I just want to give a shout out to Protivity. They've been very helpful with their assistance towards those efforts. And then, you know, fully staffing the finance department has really allowed us to do some of the deeping that we've been wanting to do that we couldn't. We were just kind of like keeping our head above water, right? Doing a doggy paddle and just, you know, when we first came on. But now we've been able to do a lot of those things you've been asking for and that we know we need: policies and procedures for payroll, how we retire our assets, our investment policy. This also gave us an opportunity to put together organizational charts. We've also looked at our banking relationships recently. We also met with New Haven Bank, as they're a CDFI bank, and we'd like to invest some of our funds in local banks that assist distressed municipalities with low-income neighborhoods. So we're looking at our banking relationships as well. We also, because procurement falls under the finance department, we've had an opportunity to take a look at some of our longstanding contracts and look at the last time that they've been bid. And if they haven't been bid in recent years, we're rebidding them. But it's also given us an opportunity to bid new potential contracts. And one of those is the out-of-state license plate to help us with our motor vehicle tax collections. So I'm just looking at the agenda. Shifting from finance, our focus about transparency and building trust in government, that didn't end, you know, those first few months. We want to continue to do that and demonstrate to the public that we are an open book. So we recently had mandatory FOI training for all our employees, just to reemphasize that it's the people's government and everybody's entitled to it. And then we just have a lot in the pipeline, and hopefully next meeting we'll be able to share some of the results of all the work we're doing in our economic development and our grants department. And then lastly, I just want to point out something that's at the end of the agenda because I've been working on it, so I'm closer to the issue, although Ricky Spry will be able to give more details. And that's the library, that $1 million for the library, because I think this is a real win-win-win situation if it all comes to fruition. So as you may recall, the Blake building on Tetlow Street was a building the city owned, and it was sold to Shoreline Wellness. And Shoreline Wellness is a mental health facility, and their mission was to provide mental health services to the neighborhood. They have had challenges remediating that building. The asbestos is a little bit more than they had anticipated, and they're not developers. They provide mental health services. So on a parallel track, we have a library that has been looking for a home, as you know, for several years in the same neighborhood. So I brought the library together with Shoreline Wellness, and they're in talks right now where the library is going to purchase that building from Shoreline Wellness and then rent a floor to Shoreline Wellness. So the lawyers are working this out, and if it all comes together, we will now have a library in this distressed neighborhood. We will have mental health services in this distressed neighborhood, and we will be fixing up an old school that's just falling down in the middle of this neighborhood. So that's the library, $1 million that's on the agenda that you'll see. And that is a caveat based on their purchase and remediation of that Blake building. So I just wanted to point that out too, because that building might look familiar to you, because I know there was a lot of discussion when it was originally sold. So I'm just going to pause, see if you have anything for me.
We have listed under your executive summary the draft fund balance and investment policies. Is that something we can discuss now?
Yeah, Michael can go over those. We looked at,
Okay.
Tom Hamilton actually had made some recommendations about investment policies, and we looked at maybe 4 or 5 cities, and we adopted one. It's not all of our investment policies. We're still looking across the board at, police, Allentown, all of our investment policies. But I think this is one that Michael can share and it'd be worthy of discussion.
All right, we'll do that after we do the audit reports then. Any questions for the mayor before she goes off to her medical appointments?
To try to get healed.
Get better.
Oh, thank you. Not pretty. That's why I'm off camera as well.
Oh dear.
Sorry to hear
But-
this.
But thank you all. Thank you all for everything you're doing,
All
and I'll catch up with the team later.
We'll see you soon, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, then returning to our regularly scheduled programming, the PKF O'Connor Davies PowerPoint and Mr. Centafanti, is he online?
Yes, I'm here.
All righty. What do you got for us?
All right, I'm just gonna walk through the PowerPoint. I don't know if you're gonna put that up but if everyone
Somebody
has
get-
it.
Do we have this, Kim? Why don't we put
s-
this up?
Yeah, Simon, do you have that available or not?
Yes, I do.
Can you share
Yeah,
or?
yep.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
great. So I'm just gonna go right to page 3. So financial statement highlights, there's an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is page 2 in the audit. Some things that are different from last year, or highlights of looking at page 41, expenditures exceeding budget. So again, there's a recommendation that says council should really be approving budget transfers. Textbook is before the line goes over, but at least after year end, there should be those approvals so that we don't have a whole list of amounts that are shown overspent, which is basically a violation of the budget. Pension fund investment concentration, there is a new note there that on page 70 that talks about investments over 5%, which is a required disclosure. And there are several investments that are over the 5%, and it's a risk disclosure, concentration of risk, and they are related to the alternative investments. On page 38, the new software subscription standard was implemented, so the accounting policy notes are updated. There's a new liability note for subscriptions payable. This is GASB 96, and then related on page 92, a prior period adjustment to record that. Moving on to general fund, which is Exhibit C and D in the audit report, pages 21, 23. Unassigned fund balance at June 30, 23 is the 14.8 million. That's up from the basically $8 million last year. So fund balance is 8.97% of expenditures and transfers out, again up from the 4.89, and the net change in the fund balance was the 6.8 million. And the next slide we'll see where that came from. So the first part of it was from revenues and other financing sources in excess of budget of the 829,000, and that basically came from municipal revenue sharing grant of 581,000 that was in excess of budget, and sale of assets of the 303,000 that was in excess of budget. The bigger part came from the expenditure side. The next slide, so expenditures were under budget by the $5.9 million, and that basically the significant drivers of that were general government. The contingency was underspent by the 2.6. Public safety and admin operations was overspent by $1 million. Public works, highways, and park maintenance was underspent by 1.6, and debt service was underspent by the 2.2. So those two numbers together, the 828 and the 5947, equal the 6.775 increase in fund balance. All right, Allentown Fire Department. So revenues were 9.22 million, just slightly over in excess of budget of the 5,800. Expenditures and transfers out were the 9,174,000, which was about 9,000 below budget. And basically, part of that was due to the transfer out of the 1,145,000 that was transferred into a capital non-recurring fund. So that should be able to relieve some budgetary pressure for capital items going forward. So basically, almost a break-even year at the 15,000. Again, and I think during the year, there was also additional pension fund contributions to get that funding percentage higher. We'll look at that a little bit later, slide where that is, at least at June 30, 23. Sewer fund, the revenues were 12.7, up from the 11.8 million in the prior year. The expenditures and transfers out, operating is about the same as last year. Capital was a little bit lower. Debt service was slightly higher. The transfer to general fund was a little bit lower, and that's just related to the clean water debt service schedule. And then again, here where there was a transfer of 1.2 million to a capital improvement fund, which I think is a good strategy that will help manage future capital needs. So the bottom line was a net decrease in net position of the $188,000. Next is the internal service funds. So on page 121, the change in that position, medical was 1.6 positive. I think I'm missing general liability. I'm missing the top line is positive of 81,000. Workers' compensation, a positive operations of the 1,762,000. So that position, medical, is at 2.439. Usually we look at a benchmark related to your claims. Your stop loss is usually at 125%. So 25% of claims, you're at 2.3 million. So you're kind of right at a good spot there as far as funding that 25% exposure that you have, the city has. So that position for general liability is a deficit of 425,000, and workers' compensation, the $7.7 million. So included at June 23 in that fund, it was the OPEB contributions. So the current year contributions were 200. The total contributions are 525. That's we haven't done the audit work yet, but that's expected that was transferred to the trust fund for June of 24. So looking in, we kind of use current ratio as a guide for the general liability and workers' compensation. Is there enough cash really to pay current liabilities? So general liability is pretty near zero, and workers' comp is up to 0.8, almost to 1. So that there's a lot of improvements there. I think there was a large transfer that was made during the year that got that a little bit closer to where it needs to be. All right, pension funds. So the police pension, the percentage funded is 73.52. Our prior year is 73.52. Current year is about the 71, and basically that was caused, the decrease was related to change in assumptions, lowering the discount rate to 6.9. That's the trend in a lot of communities that, kind of moving towards a 6.5% discount rate. Allentown, the percentage went up almost 5%. So the current funding percentage is 39.17. Again, well-funded plans are closer to 80. So that there's definitely still need to pay attention to that. So most of the increase was related to two different things, and that change in fair value was up to 687, and then additional contributions that were made above the ARC, where it was the 973,000. So hopefully, if the monies are available, they can continue to contribute above the ARC to get that percentage up.
Joe, can I stop you with a question? This is Tom Hamilton.
Sure.
Yeah, the on this slide here, I'm assuming that these funded percentages are based on market value of the pension plan assets as of June 30th, 23, as opposed to the actuarial asset value. I'm pretty sure the actuaries use a 5-year smoothing technique for gains and losses, but the financial statements would show market value. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, the smoothing is just used for calculating the arc, but for financials, it's just fair value at June 30 measured, subtracted from the liability. You're correct.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. All right, OPEB on the next slide at June 30, 23, there was no trust and not funded. As we mentioned earlier, there's 525,000 that's been budgeted over the last couple of years to move into that trust. And hopefully that was done for June 24. And the liability at June 23 is the $229 million. And the same in Allentown, that there was no trust at 23. So I think that they were set up simultaneously, which we'll verify during the 24 audit, but that hasn't been funded at all at this point, and the liability is the 24.9 million. All right, federal and state single audits. So for federal, unmodified opinion on compliance, total amount expended is $26 million. There was one new internal control finding related to bank reconciliations and the timeliness of when they're completed. And then the other comments the other findings are repeated from prior years. The program findings, we did have a finding on the ARPA fund as far as the accuracy of the reporting. Based upon our testing, things did not line up, so that was a finding for last year. The programs that we tested are listed below: the cafeteria, ARPA, IDA, student support, and ESSER. So ESSER and ARPA are considered higher risk by the federal government, so they're always audited, although ESSER for 24 is no longer considered higher risk, but ARPA is. So we will expect to test that again in fiscal 24.
Mr. White has a question.
Yes, going back to the OPEB, is there any sense of when the city and Allentown hit the wall? That is when they can't fund OPEB liabilities as they come due? Is that 3 years out, 5 years out, 100 years out? What?
Well, so what happens with OPEB is it's never really been converted to like pension is, where it's funded and the claims are paid out of the OPEB fund. I mean, obviously there's not a lot of money there. So really right. They're being budgeted annually. So it's kind of pay as you go. So it's not going to hit the wall in that sense, because they're budgeting for it and paying for it out of general fund right now.
But I guess the question is, at some point, that because there is no money to take it from, that number, the pay-go number, is going to be huge. Do we have any idea, or is there any process to find out when they're not going to be able to afford the OPEB pay-go? That isn't even English.
Yeah, I think that would be a question for the actuary and then the city as far as their budgeting. Like, what are they projecting future claims? What's the growth? What the impact would be on the budget? But I don't have that specific. But the actuary would be in a position to kind of give you a sense of that.
Yeah, I guess the only comment then I would suggest to the city that they follow up on that, so they don't hit a wall unexpectedly. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hey,
Yeah,
Joe, I'm sorry, Joe.
Who's that?
It's Mike Gormley. Hi. I think to answer part of Bob's question is we have started to look at that with Milliman, our actuaries. We did start to look at funding OPEB, but I do want to mention one area related to OPEB as far as the actual cost. As Joe said, we did transfer the funds in FY24 for past years to the OPEB trust. The purpose of that trust is to build it up so we could start paying claims. As Joe said, we're really on a pay as we go. But I think one of the advantages in West Haven is within the union contracts that were settled, prior to me coming and, but from what I've learned is if you are hired after a certain date within some of these contracts, you don't actually get retiree medical. So what we're anticipating with Milliman is there will be this period where the expenses go up, but they should decline after a period of time because of those union contracts, if that language isn't changed in the future.
Thank you.
But we have started to look at, I think, what your question is, like, what is the true funding of the OPEB, ADEC, and things like that?
Mr. Hamilton.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, question on the bank reconciliations, Joe. So that was a new comment in the management letter, and was there actually backsliding, do you think, in this area, or it had just not been sort of identified and picked up? Because obviously bank reconciliations are pretty fundamental, and I was sort of surprised to see that comment pop up at this point.
Well, I think part of what happened is the 21 audit was way late, the 22. So by the time we started the audit process, we got bank recs, so it's not coming to our attention. Although there was a recommendation they should be signed off and approved. So I think when we were closer to the process, and that's what we were waiting for to finish the 23 audit, it was right down to the end there was a couple of bank recs that we were waiting for. So it became more apparent because of the timing of the audit accelerated. So the prior 2 years, we requested bank recs, we got bank recs. So I think the problem was there. It just wasn't identified because we're so far past year end when we requested the information.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's a little bit better to hear that, I think, although certainly we will want to follow up with the city on this issue because as you well know, bank recs, timely bank recs are really one of the key ways that any potential fraud or anomalies can be detected. So I would definitely think we ought to follow up on that.
Yes, and just to provide perspective, we were out yesterday at the city doing some planning, and part of what we did work on, again, I didn't look at the specifics, were bank recs. So that's kind of in the right window. I don't know if 100% of them, but the majority, we got quite a pile yesterday. So it looks like that has been addressed for the most part, but we'll, finish up our work.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Do
Okay.
you want to move to the state single audit?
State single audit, all right. Yep, so again, unmodified opinion on compliance, total expenditures are almost $78 million. We, internal control findings are exactly the same as the federal that we just went over. The program findings, child daycare, school readiness, sub-recipient monitoring. The procedures need to be put in place to make sure that's accomplished. I think if I remember at the end of last year, that there were some things put in place, but the child daycare and the school readiness, it's the same subrecipient. So one's Board of Ed, one's town side. So hopefully they can, combine their efforts and do the monitoring all at the same time. But it's all going to the West Haven daycare. So those have been recurring findings for quite a while. So, and again, I think some progress was made, and of course we'll be following up on that in our audit process. And the community conservation grant, just again, the reports were not filed. So the programs that we did test: Alliance, daycare, the tiered pilot, the body worn camera program, this curbside scrap and unit pricing, which was a new grant, pilot program, and clean water revenue bonds. And then there was a correction and action plan that was submitted to address all those that you should have. I'm not going to walk through that. So recommendations, again, I highlighted in green the ones that are new. We talked about bank recs. So just from a perspective, when it comes to internal control, significant deficiency, any internal control related recommendations are going to be reported if they existed during the fiscal year, unless it's just a minimal part. So implementation date kind of drives these, because if they were present during the audit, they're going to be reported. So there is a little bit of lag on some of these, like vendor approval procedures have been put in place, but not during the year that we audited or was at the end of the year. So from the perspective of what you would expect to see, these comments will be evaluated again, but they do lag, because if they existed during the year and that risk is there because they're material and significant, they're going to be reported. So some of the other comments, sometimes if they're resolved after year end, if they're not internal control based, then they would be able to be removed. That's why you're seeing some of the same ones. The bank rec one we talked about, and again, initially without completing the testing, it looks like that procedures have been put in place to address that. The other new one, general ledger maintenance, it's just kind of relates to making sure all the entries, everything gets updated, all accounts. We do have a lot of adjustments for retainage and receivables and those type of things. So I know the city's been looking at whatever audit adjustments we have last year. They need to kind of reverse engineer that this year and make sure that those entries get done by the city and are not audit adjustments. And then again, capital assets for both everyone. There's just not a formal policy to control and manage that. It's so just looking having a policy, forms, and not leaving the search to the year end. All right. Again, the next page, the grant accounting. There's just some of the accounting is just not clear as far as when it comes to federal or state money. We need to get back to actual costs. A lot of things are moved by journal entry, which means we've got to audit the journal entry, and it can be done. It's much more labor intensive, but if the entry is 100 invoices, then I need to see the 100 invoices to make sure they're allowable. So what the comment is getting at is when it's grant related, it should be charged directly. Not that there will never be a journal entry, but that shouldn't be the way they're managed. And ARPA money should be spent out of ARPA funds, the ARPA fund, and not transferred to another fund and spent there, just because it just makes it very difficult to test the compliance and it to be clear that the compliance, allowable costs, and that type of thing were followed.
Excuse me, Joe. I have
Sure.
one question. That is when they're making the transfers, is this on the city side and the Board of Ed, or are you focusing on just one here?
It's on
The
both.
grant. It's both.
It's
Okay.
both sides. The education grants, a lot of it's managed by journal entry, which just complicates the audit process to make sure it's allowable.
Thank you.
All right, and there was one recommendation that was removed related to Davis Bacon prior year or obtaining the certified payrolls from the vendor. That was removed. And again, as I said, when I started this section, the removal process is going to be based upon, again, the type of recommendation and when it was implemented. So that's all I have. If there's any other questions.
Any questions for the accountants on the FY23 audit. What's the status of FY24?
For 24, we've been doing preliminary work along the way. We had our planning meeting yesterday. So again, which is still in the preliminary phase. So the final phase will start once we get trial balances. So we will be sending it out an updated request list today or tomorrow as far as what we would the typical stuff we need, which again, I think it already was sent earlier, but we'll send an updated one as far as, again, certain things that can be provided as soon as it's available.
Mr. Hamilton.
Yeah, just a follow-up question on, you had made a couple of comments in there, I think, about alternative investments and the pension funds. And you had said that they were over 5% in, I think it was the Allentown you said, but do you know what percentage alternative investments represented off the top of your head? And do you have some concerns there? Because I think there were actually two places where you made reference to some concerns over the alternative investments.
Yeah, I don't have the percentage off of, because it's not, I don't think it's separated in that note. I could look that up, but I'd have to look at the work papers.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so it was just over 5%, so it hit some threshold that you have for making reference to it as a concentration risk, or was there something a little more to it that you thought ought to be looked at?
Well, I'm not sure that the policy addresses like what is a policy that, as far as the volume, I'll have to double check, but alternatives, some of these are just really different, and there needs to be a very detailed due diligence up front for some of this, and it's just been a trend that it's increasing more and more. There was always a little bit, but it's just been increasing at a very high rate. So I just think there's some attention that needs to be put on it to evaluate, because there's a lot of procedures, and we don't always find that the communities investing in this are getting the audit reports and doing the due diligence and making sure that everything, makes sense. And some of these are real estate limited partnerships, and so there's just a little bit more risk, and I'm just not sure where anyone at the city level is evaluating that risk. I mean, so that's why it's highlighted, and the required disclosure is 5%, saying there's a big risk there that if that doesn't pan out. So
right. Okay, thanks.
Sure. All right. Any other questions? All right. I think you're on mute, so I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, I was on
no
mute.
problem.
I had to blow my nose 5 minutes ago. I forgot to get back. Kim, are we good with the audit findings and so far? No questions?
No, I know that they have a lot of work to do. Unfortunately, the findings increased from the prior year to the current year, is what you found, Joe. And but I know that they're working on these. So hopefully when they get to the 24, they'll have made some progress to knock some of these down.
We should go ahead and let the board know that you and I have already started to have preliminary chats with the mayor about an exit plan over the next little while. Well, not little while. We'll see how it goes. But clearing all this stuff, all these audit findings is going to be, and I'm speaking to the city folks here because the mayor's left us, but she knows this. Getting these audit findings cleared is going to be central to that, at least as far as I'm concerned, in terms of letting you go from our oversight. So, please take all of this to heart, and let's get that done. Thank you for your work, sir. I was trying to thank you for your, when you couldn't hear me say, I was thanking you for all this great work and look forward to seeing the FY24 audit as well.
All right, great. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep, welcome. Bye.
So we already heard from the mayor. That's the next item, but under her summary was that draft fund balance and investment policy. Is there someone at the city that can talk to the fund balance and investment policies that are being considered?
Thank
Mr.
you,
Spryer.
Secretary Beckham.
Sure. Yes. Thank you.
Mike Gormany. So one of the things that we have been working on since I've been here is looking at the investment policy. West Haven actually did have a very broad investment policy that was adopted years and years and years ago in the early 2000s. So what I submitted as part of the packet was kind of where we were from a draft standpoint with the investment policy in beefing up the investment policy. One of the areas that we're looking at adding is an OPEB section to this investment policy. And as the mayor mentioned, we've actually been gathering what the other funds have been doing and if they have an investment policy. So the police pension fund, Allentown, so on and so forth. So what we wanted to do was just kind of submit where we were at and so you could see the work that has been done thus far. Again, this has been in draft form and I want to give a shout out to Protivity. They have been helping me with this policy as well. They actually gave me some feedback after we submitted this draft. So again, this is in draft form. There's still some work to be done, but we hope to be done in the next month or so and finalizing an investment policy to submit to the city council and then also to submit to MARB as well. But we did want to show you the progress that we are making in drafting the policy. Another policy that the city really didn't have that we wanted to explore was also that we submitted in the packet was a fund balance policy. The city finances has, over the last few audits, have had a surplus in the general fund, and we were able to build up the fund balance over the last couple of years. So what we wanted to do was draft a fund balance policy that kind of guides us in the budget process moving forward to ensure that we try to maintain an adequate fund balance for any expenditures, any unanticipated expenditures or events in the future, or any revenue loss due to exigent circumstances that may happen in the future. So we did also look at a draft fund balance policy and look at best practices as well within this fund balance policy. So again, over my last 3 months is kind of what I've been working on. Mr. Taylor is back. I am one of the people who is glad Mr. Taylor is back. Just threw me right in when he had to go out on leave. So we are working on a lot of policies. I know Mr. Centofanti mentioned, bank recs. That's certainly something that we're looking for, but we have started to draft a lot of the policies and implement some of them as well within the city. Again, the practice was always there. I think it's really formalizing a lot of the practices that Mr. Taylor, I know, has certainly done in the last year or so within the city. So that's kind of my update for the mayor's executive summary, but we just want to show you that we are making progress on the investment policy. I am working with Protivity, and I am also working with our financial advisor. Some of you may know Bill Lindsay as well. Just to make sure, again, we capture everything in the investment policies. And I'm certainly open to feedback if anybody has it on anything that they see in the investment policy or fund balance policy as well. So thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. For the fund balance, I noticed your target allocation for unassigned fund balance is 8.5% of general fund revenue. Someone help me out? What is the good practice, best practice for Connecticut municipalities in terms of that percentage?
The GFOA uses a 15%.
Okay.
I believe Bill Plummer is still on here, if he can confirm that.
60 days, which is 16.67, but yeah.
Thank you.
Close.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Yes. So we added 8.5% just because we really started building up the fund balance. But I also know, as Ms. Kennison said, it's around 15 or 16% or 3 months of operating costs that 3 months of operating costs based on your budget. So again, I understand it's a small target allocation, but again, the city over the last 4 or 5 years really just started building up the fund balance again. So I didn't want to create too big of an expectation. And of course, we can always modify the fund balance as we continue to grow it.
Questions of the board? Mr.
I do
Hamilton?
have,
Yeah, I guess one thing I would recommend is I know that Bill Lindsay has access to information on fund balances from essentially all municipalities in Connecticut, and he gets that information from one of the rating agencies, I believe. So he can tell you what the mean and the median are of the various communities at different rating levels. And so if you wanted to, say, target, the median fund balance level of a single A rated municipality, which all things considered, probably West Haven, if it didn't have all the financial challenges that it's had, could be certainly a single A rated municipality. That might be a reasonable target to shoot for, because then it would also put you in sort of the range of what the rating agencies would be expecting if your objective was to try to get the bond rating up to a single A. So I just recommend that as one source of information, as your financial advisor definitely has good data for you to kind of look at as well.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. He has also looked at the fund balance policy as well. And we are going to touch base again on feedback. So again, it's in draft form. So like I said, look forward to everyone's feedback on this.
Ms. Kennison, you had something?
I had one more thing, and it's related to you described Bill Lindsay as your financial advisor. Is he also looking at these investments and you're using him as an investment financial advisor when you're creating
Yes,
this investment policy? Because it has been one of the recommendations of this committee that you have two things, that even from Treasury it came from, where one is the folks that make the investments, your broker, and make all of your investments, but an advisor to look at to make sure that the investments that are being chosen are in fact good investments.
No, thank you, Ms. Kennison. Yes, we are using Bill Lindsay to look at these policies, and in that capacity and somewhat. One of the things that we've also been gathering, prior in July, prior to Mr. Taylor going out, was we started looking at who the asset managers and who the managers of each fund were, like the city's 401ks, the police pension funds, Allentown. So that is work that he has continued to help me on. We are going to get back to that, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, to try to finalize these policies. So yes, I am relying really on Bill Lindsay to help us out as well.
Thank you. One other question, is the fund balance policy approved? Or is that in draft also? It doesn't say draft, so I wasn't sure.
No, that is in draft form. It should have been submitted in draft form, but that is not approved yet.
Very
because
good,
I know
thank you.
I have to submit that to city council as well.
Mr. White?
Yes, thank you. Following up on Tom's comment on fund balance, whatever you decide the target is, I completely understand that, it's only recently that you've been building it up, so you've got to manage expectations. But I would hope as part of the exit plan that you do a timeline or a rough timeline to when you would hit the target. It may be longer, but I think you just, before we let you go, we stop having fun every month, then that you are on track to hit whatever the target is, albeit it may take a while.
Yes, thank you, Mr. White. I think one of the driving things will be, the budget development and also the 5-year plan that was approved by the MARB. That's one of our guiding principles as well.
Okay. Other questions about the fund balance or the investment policies? We'll move on then to the ARPA funding update. Request was made to the city for an update of the status of the use of ARPA funds by the city. In your meeting materials is a copy of an ARPA tracker that the city of West Haven has provided, that listing all their ARPA projects, and they can give us an overview of those projects and the process of making sure we obligate, or making sure they obligate all of their ARPA funds by the end of this year in compliance with Treasury guidance.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Yes. We want to provide an update of the tracker of the City of West Haven funds. Through the council, we have approved $28.8 million worth of projects. So again, that's council approval. Myself and Ken and our senior buyer Kathy met yesterday as well. The plan is to go over the project statuses with the ARPA committee in the next 2 weeks. We are, that December 31st deadline will come up very quickly. And the plan, ARPA was initially developed to make sure that cities and towns rebound from the pandemic. So we certainly don't want to return any of the federal money and want to make sure that these projects are realistic. So what we're going to be doing is Ken provided an updated tracker, as the secretary mentioned, to show the status of the open projects and the completed projects. So again, we approved $28.8 million in actual projects. As you see on the tracker, we have 19.7 million that is actually obligated or under contracts. We do have a portion that is currently being worked on, excuse me, that is being worked on through the contract process as well. So the anticipation with West Haven is to have all these funds obligated by December 31st of 2024. On the bottom of the tracker was what was really left over, which we call contingency. We do build in some contingency within the projects and do have some contingency left over. That number actually decreased slightly. In the tracker that you have, it says 429,375. That actually decreased by 250,000. In my meeting with Ken yesterday. So again, the city will have about 200,000 or so to look at obligating towards additional projects. But again, we are going to meet with the ARPA committee over the next 2 weeks to go over again the status of each of these projects to make sure that they're going to hit their goals. And if we need to re-obligate any funds within these projects, we know we need to get that process started within September or October to ensure that the funds are obligated. But again, this is an updated tracker, I believe as of 2 weeks ago. So
Questions on the ARPA tracker? Looks like we're good with that.
Yeah, we have about $10 million that hasn't been used, or 9 million hasn't been used as of yet. You mentioned 200,000, so I would just want to keep an eye on that. And I know it's work to be committed. I would have thought that maybe the committed would be obligated would be a little bit higher, closer to the higher number than 10 million still available. That's all.
Other questions, comments on the ARPA? Okay. So we have the tier 4 action. I'm sorry, someone out
It
there?
looks like Sue had something.
Oh, hi, Sue. Ms. Weiselberg has a question.
I'm trying to unmute myself. Oh, there we go. So one of the items on our agenda is $1 million for the Blake Building. And I was not on the board when there were discussions about it a number of years ago and its sale, but I did look it up. And my sense would be that that building needs more than $1 million between remediation and renovation. You're giving it $1 million from ARPA. Do you have updated numbers? And if it's more than $1 million, does that come from ARPA or elsewhere? Thank you.
The $1 million will cover the sale cost, the remediation, which has been already budgeted and forecasted by an environmental group company. The rest of the money, or anything above and beyond, will come from the Village Improvement Association's own operating fund.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions concerning the ARPA tracker? All right, seeing none. Next item on our agenda is the Tier 4 action plan update. We have status reports in your materials from Whittlesey and Protiviti in terms of what their activities are with the city and what their percent complete are. There's a couple of charts there in your materials. We're going to have them both in for the October meeting for more information. But if you have questions between now and then, please let the staff know and we'll try to run some of that down for you. But is there any questions or comments at this point on Whittlesey and Protiviti's updates in your materials? If not, we'll move on then to review and discussion of the city and the board's monthly financials for June 2024.
I have to sign off. Take care. Good luck.
Oh, thank you, Mr. White. All right, we've got Mr. Gormany or Mr. Taylor, I think, on the city's financials.
Yep, we're okay. Sorry, we're unmuted now. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So within your packet was the June 2024 report. The city is still projecting between $4 and $5 million as a surplus for that fiscal year. Right now, we are looking at setting a closing date for fiscal year 24 around September 30th is my target date for closing the fiscal year. So again, in the memo that was submitted, that's why we have it as estimated. We're still going through the journal entries, the year-end journals, and hope to have all that completed by September 30th, which will also allow us to submit the closeout transfer, as Mr. Santafani mentioned in his presentation for fiscal year 2024 to the City Council for approval. But we are projecting again between 4 to 5 million on the city operating side. This is net of transferring, as we mentioned in the previous meetings, $1 million to the Workers' Comp Internal Service Fund to get that liability down. This also does include the Board of Education being on having a balanced budget, which Mr. Cavallero will go through within his presentation. To kind of give you a highlight of some of the revenues, property taxes, we are looking at a slight shortfall in property taxes. Between the budget and what was actually collected, but overall, of 800,000, but overall we collected most of the taxes. And again, this is a roll up of the entire tax budget. So it includes the current year plus any prior year and back tax collections. For state grants, we did exceed the budget by 1.5 million. For city education grants, this was a change from the last report as we're reconciling with Mr. Cavallaro on some of the general fund revenue. There were some grants in ECS that we had to reclassify based on how they were received from the state. So that did create a slight shortfall within the education grant side on the general fund side. And then on the investment income, again, you know, the city has money invested in STIF and other bank accounts. So we are seeing great returns on just all our short-term investments in cash management, which looks to exceed budget by 1.5 million. And then some of our other local revenues, such as building permits, will exceed budget as well for the year. Now, there were some slight decreases in some of our local revenues that are within the bullet points in the memo, such as parking meters, recording fees, and a couple of other areas. Overall, on the revenue side, the city is expecting to exceed budget by $1.2 million. On the expense side, again, what was really driving expenditures for fiscal year 24 was wages and overtime. We did see overtime exceed the budget for fiscal year 24, but we did have vacancy savings and wages to cover most, not all, but most of that overtime overage. We did pay employee benefits. We did see some savings there slightly. We did see savings in debt service as well within the expenditure side for the fiscal year on the operating account. That was due to the timing of the bonding. We didn't do bonding until February of this year, so we did see some savings on debt service payments. While it's not on here overall, we are expected to spend around 170 to 171 million of the $173 million budget for expenditures. So there will be a savings of around $2 million in expenditures savings. So the expenditure savings for the fiscal year plus the revenue excess is where we get to slightly over $4 million. Again, that's on the conservative side. We're still looking through and combing through fiscal year 24. And again, the expectation is to close on September 30th. We sent out an email to all our departments to ensure that we have all invoices, any adjustments that need to be made for fiscal year 24, that the finance department received that by September 11th to ensure that we have a smooth closing of the fiscal year 24 books. On the sewer account, we are projecting the sewer fund to be slightly over budget. We are going through the sewer account. To make that whole, we will probably have to request through city council as part of the year-end transfer an additional portion of the operating budget, which is included in that net $4 to $5 million number. To transfer some additional funds over to the sewer department to again make that account whole. I think the sewer department did have some vacancies within that department, and they did see some additional overtime for fiscal year 24, which is really one of the driving factors in that department being over budget. The Allentown Fire Department, as mentioned on the memo, we are seeing a surplus. We are projecting about 1.7 million in the Allentown Fire Fund. As we mentioned in prior meetings, we are looking at paying down part of that pension liability with the surplus fund. So again, as I mentioned in the memo, the Allentown Fire District 1.7 is prior to us figuring out the amount that we're going to transfer over to the pension fund to try to increase the funding for that, as you've seen in Mr. Centofanti's presentation. I believe it was around 39%. So we're going to try to bump that up slightly within that fund using a portion of these surpluses. The next few pages are really just the munis reports that we submit with the memo. So that's an update of the city's June financials. We hope around the end of September or in October to have the final numbers for fiscal year 24. And we are not expecting any major shifts in what we see. But again, all of these are estimated, and the finance department is working diligently to go through these numbers to finalize. So thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Hamilton?
Yes, I just wanted to ask again about the issue of bank reconciliations. And are you able to confirm that bank reconciliations are completed for fiscal year 24? If so, are they completed through June of 24?
No, thank you, Mr. Hamilton. So I think the issue was really with bank reconciliations, as the mayor mentioned in her opening remarks, was staffing. The city finance department wasn't staffed fully with bank reconciliation, wasn't fully staffed in the beginning of fiscal year 23 when they were doing the fiscal year 22 audit. They did have some temporary staffing from Robert Half, but again, it still didn't fully staff the finance department. I can tell you at this moment that has been one of the priorities is bank reconciliations, and we are mostly updated through June of 2024. There is still a little bit of work to do on our main operating account, but our senior accountant, our manager of finance, and Dave Taylor have been working diligently to get caught up. And I can confidently say we are caught up for most of the fiscal year. I believe, Mr. Secretary, Dave wanted to add something as well. I think his hand was up.
Oh,
as well.
Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and I just wanted to mention, the bank recs, not only are they complete, they are complete as to all bank accounts through June. With the exception of one account where we're waiting for some entries to be made that will affect the cash balance. However, these entries should have no effect, but we're just waiting to make sure they don't. And so once that's done, we will be complete. That should be this week. And not only that, we've added a sign-off process whereby I review the work that was done on every bank reconciliation every month, and that was started last July. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So yeah, I can confidently say Dave, myself, the manager of accounting, we've been working diligently to make sure that we're caught up, because the best practice is really to be mostly a month, maybe a month and a half behind, because you have to wait for the previous month to close. So we are looking at getting to that point with our bank reconciliations. But we are caught up through June of 2024, as Mr. Taylor mentioned.
Other questions of the city concerning the city's June financial report? Board of Ed also provided their financials, and Mr. Cavallero can give us an update.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Yes, so we've submitted our June financials. To date, we believe we will finish on budget. The only thing missing from our financials is our summer payrolls for our 10-month employees, teachers, and our school secretaries. Those will be, the final summer payroll was August 14th. Those payrolls will be posted to Munis by the end of this week, as I have to complete the EFS report, the old EDO 1, by September 3rd. Nothing in those payrolls will move us from our projection of being on budget. Our Officer 3 grant is fully obligated. We are going to carry forward roughly about $500,000 to fiscal year 25 to complete the payments for the last project That was approved by the MARB on the June 27th meeting, the work done at the West Haven High School pool. Our other state and federal grants, such as Title I and IDA, have been spent in full in accordance with the rules and regulations of each of those grants. And at the October 3rd meeting, I believe the September 12th meeting was moved to then, I will have our final year-end budget transfers for MARB review.
Questions for the Board of Ed? All right. Thank you very much then.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is a review and discussion of the open items list. The open items list was updated by OPM staff, and a copy was provided to the West Haven staff for their review. This list will be discussed at the next West Haven subcommittee meeting, currently scheduled for September 26th, but it's on our agenda today. So if members of the board have any thoughts or questions or comments about the open items, we could take those up now, or we can await the subcommittee's deliberations, and I'm sure we'll have it on the next regular meeting. Seeing none, then we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is mostly why we're here today, is to get through some of these contracts. We have review and discussion and possible action for some non-labor contracts. The first one is Diversity Construction Group LLC, West Shore Fire District Building Improvement, ARPA funds being used. The city went out to bid seeking proposals for an improvement project for the Ocean Avenue and Benham Hill fire stations in the West Shore Fire District. The project is to make improvements to the living conditions for the male and female staff there, plus upgrades to the kitchen at the Benham Hill Firehouse. 2 bids were received. They're seeking approval to award the bid to Diversity Group Construction LLC of Wallingford for $823,000, project being funded with ARPA funds. City can provide an overview or answer questions.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Rick Spryer here. Yeah, this is the subcommittee toured our Dawson Avenue Firehouse down on Ocean Avenue and our Benham Hill location. This is what was approved for upgrades to their sleeping quarters and to address flooding in Dawson Avenue. This is an 8-month contract. Once it's signed, the term of the contract is 8 months for completion of work. There is an alternate in there as well to upgrade the kitchen facilities for the Benham Hill station, but that will be decided upon once we see how we're moving forward with the sleeping quarters and the flooding work.
Questions concerning this contract? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the contract.
So moved,
So moved.
Salvaciano.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Weisselberg. Mr. Hamilton?
Yeah, I'm going to support this. I participated in this tour and believe that the projects are necessary. Just curious, I don't know if West Haven had the kind of rain that we had a week or so ago here where I live, but did you experience any, damage or additional damage as a result of heavy rains from that storm?
We had, the usual amount of flooding at the fire department, but we did not have catastrophic rains as unfortunately our fellow communities in the valley had. So we were spared most of that, but we did have the normal amount that was just handled as it always is by the staff at the firehouse.
Okay, great. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yes. We dodged it.
Other questions or discussion on this item? We've had a motion that was seconded for approval of this contract. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on to the next item, which is a contract with International Allegiance Trucks for the Allentown Fire Department, a cab and chassis vehicle. At a February meeting, the MARB approved the purchase of, the use of $667,544 for the purchase of a new cab and chassis from Ford for an Allingtown Fire Department rescue unit instead of purchasing a brand new ambulance. However, the length of the Ford could not be accommodated in the station. After some research, a unit made by International was understood to have a model that would fit the station. So the city's seeking approval to switch from the Ford 550 to a 2025 International CV 515 chassis. The purchase price for this International chassis and an equipment package to accommodate the ambulance body is $103,996.50. The vendor is Allegiance Trucks on Brainerd Road in Hartford, Connecticut, and is funded out of the Allingtown Fire Department operating budget. So Allegiance is part of the Sourcewell contract, which is a purchasing type co-op used by the city of West Haven. City can answer questions on this item. Questions on the purchase of the chassis? Entertain a motion to approve the contract.
So moved, Saliciano.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Weisselberg. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Move on to Tracy's Garage, Inc. for the Allingtown Fire Department ambulance repair. City is seeking approval to repair a 2013 International Navistar ambulance at a cost of $66,157.70. This work is being performed by Tracy's Garage, Inc. in Derby, Connecticut. That has a state contract, so this would be funded out of the Allingtown Fire Department operating budget. Questions?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve. Any second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Weisselberg. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on then to WB Mason Company, Allingtown Fire Department dormitory modification and furniture. Allingtown Fire Department is looking for improvements to the living conditions for the male and female staff at the station dormitory, looking to acquire beds with storage cabinets, privacy panels to establish individual sleeping quarters. Cost is $68,900. The furniture would be purchased from WB Mason. That's also a state contract, and this would be funded with ARPA funds. Questions on this one?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Any second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Weisselberg. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on to Mitchell, Humphrey and Company, City's IT maintenance and support. They're looking to put their permitting process online through their current software vendor. The city is looking to acquire modules for the building department, then progressing through zoning, land use, public works, engineering, and code enforcement. Cost of the project is $165,000. City's going to use capital and bond funds. Questions about this project, IT project?
Is this?
Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Weisselberg. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on to Vanass Hangen Brustlin Inc. Traffic signal rehabilitation and upgrade. City solicited proposals for qualified consultants to provide engineering services for the design and preparation of construction documents for the rehabilitation and upgrading of 10 traffic control signals throughout the city. 2 proposals were received. A panel of 3 reviewed the proposals and awarded this work to Vanass Hangen and Brustlin from Wethersfield, Connecticut for $519,700. This project will be funded out of capital bond funds. Questions on the traffic signal upgrades? Entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Saliciano.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hamilton, beating Ms.
Beat you
Weisselberg
to
to the
it.
punch. There you go. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Move on to Harrington and Sons LLC for tree services. City went out to bid for tree management services that included tree trimming, cutting and removal, trimming of brush and overgrown branches, stump grinding, and enhancing public safety. 3 bids were received based on the lowest per hour and weekend on-call rates. The city is seeking to award this tree service to Harrington and Sons of West Haven, Connecticut, for an amount of work that costs $103,000. Questions on the trees?
Salutiano, motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Ms. Weiselberg beating Mr. Hamilton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on to Mohawk Lifts LLC, a new lift for Public Works. The City of West Haven is looking to replace the Public Works lift truck that cannot be repaired. It is looking to purchase a vertical rise drive-on lift for $176,305.27. The vendor is Mohawk Lifts LLC from New Amsterdam, New York, which has a Connecticut state contract. Presumably because we don't have a Connecticut vendor that sells these trucks. The source of funds for this purchase is State of Connecticut LoCIP funds, Local Capital Improvement Grant. City can provide an overview if anyone has questions. What do you lift with this truck? What does this do?
I'm sorry.
It's a truck, is a lift for trucks.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think in my write-up, the word truck was not deleted from the write-up when it was sent. So
it's
this
a
is
lift.
Yeah, it's a
like
lift
in a
for the
garage, you pull in and this thing
Yep.
pushes the truck. So you work.
Correct.
Okay, that thing. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, this is a lift that's I believe was purchased around 1972 or 1975, somewhere around there. So we certainly got our money's worth in West Haven, but now this lift is no longer operable to the type of equipment that needs to be lifted on here, so it could be repaired. It's also presenting a safety issue, and the repairs would actually exceed the cost of a new lift. So again, our request is the $176,000 that was mentioned within the
Salutiano,
write-up.
motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Weiselberg. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on to the National Auto Fleet Group bucket truck purchase. City of West Haven is looking to replace the Public Works bucket truck that continues to need service. It is looking to replace a Dodge Ram 5500 4x2 gas powered with it's an SST 36NE aerial device, whatever that is, for $148,043. The vendor is National Auto Fleet Group LLC from Watsonville, California. Watsonville, California, where they grow strawberries, I believe. Lots and lots of strawberries. I've been to Watsonville. It's quite lovely. National Auto Fleet Group.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. National Auto Fleet Group is part of the Sourcewell contract, which is a purchasing co-op used by the City of West Haven. Source of funds for this is city capital funds. Questions on the bucket truck? Yes.
So, Mr. Secretary, I will just say that our fleet manager, Mr. Orifice, has also found within another Sourcewell contract, a vendor that may have a truck similar to this that will suit our needs for cheaper. So if we do find it cheaper, we will forward it to the contract and everything else. But I would hope that we can approve this as a not to exceed $148,000. And if we do have it cheaper, we will send you the cheaper price.
I think we don't we typically need the actual paperwork for each contract? Isn't that our practice, Ms. Kennison? So if there was a new contract and a different vendor, I think we'd have to see that and vote on that.
Even if it's a Sourcewell contract, the same as this, it would satisfy all of our procurement process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to save the city some money. I mean, it's
Mhm.
but it's something that I kind of sorely need rather, waiting till October to be able to buy it, so.
Ms. Kennison, do you have an opinion?
I don't. I would probably say it would be up to, it is that we're supposed to approve contracts if you did, if the committee is comfortable with the up to and knowing that they need this, he could give us the information if you so wish.
So
Motion
it
to
would be
approve.
Okay, but just to clarify, this would be, you're saying you might use a different vendor that's part of the Sourcewell contract co-op system that you're in now.
I'm sorry, cut out. I apologize.
Yeah, you're saying that you might use a different vendor from the Sourcewell contract? Other
Not
than
this
the one-
Sourcewell, a Sourcewell contract. Each
Okay.
Sourcewell contract is per vendor, so.
Within the
This
co-op,
vendor is
yeah.
also correct.
Mr.
Well-
Hamilton.
Mr. Hamilton's got a question.
Yeah, I would feel comfortable approving this up to the amount with the proviso that if it isn't this vendor, that they should come back next month, even if it's a couple weeks after the fact of when the purchase order has been actually issued.
Okay.
So I would be comfortable under that scenario
Absolutely.
personally.
All right, Mr. Luciano, is that your motion then, what Mr. Hamilton just said?
Yes.
Okay. Any further,
Second.
Mr. Hamilton? You have your hand up.
Uh,
Mr. Alvarez seconds. All right, I've had a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. We'll move on to the next item. The W.I. Clark Company purchase of a new excavator for Public Works using ARPA funds. City of West Haven is looking to purchase for the Public Works Department a large excavator. It is looking to purchase a John Deere 85P hydraulic excavator. It's a hard word for me to say. For $187,668.24. The vendor is W.I. Clark from Wallingford, Connecticut. They are part of the Sourcewell contract co-op system as well. This is ARPA funds the city is using. Questions
Motion
about?
to approve. Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve.
Second,
Seconded by, is that Ms. Hammersley?
it is.
All righty, there you are. You're on page 2 of my screen. There you go. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on to, are we at CDM Smith Inc. Stormwater Task Order number 42? City of West Haven and CDM Smith of East Hartford, Connecticut have a master environmental service agreement that dates back to 2015. This would be task order number 42. It's the MS4 permit compliance assistance for fiscal year 25. That is from August of 24 through July of 25. CDM Smith will perform field investigations to identify sources of illicit connections to the stormwater system. Cost of this is $250,000 funded out of the engineering department budget. This is part of the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection's general permit for discharge of stormwater from small municipal separated storm sewer systems requirements. Questions on the review by CDM Smith? Any questions? Do I hear a motion?
So move, Saliciano.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on to the City of West Haven and CDM Smith of East Hartford under the same Master Environmental Service Agreement. This is Task Order 37. It's a high priority areas sewer rehabilitation program for design and bidding services relating to the city's 153 miles of sanitary sewer lines. CDM will be preparing drawings and bid documents for sanitary sewer rehabilitation. Cost of this will be $1.2 million, funded through Clean Water Fund and CT Deep grant. Entertain a motion to approve this expenditure.
So move, Saliciano.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Alvarez. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, I think we're on to task order 43, City of West Haven and CDM Smith of East Hartford under the Master Environmental Service Agreement. Task order 43 is around capacity management, operations, and maintenance decree compliance for fiscal year 25. CDM Smith will be reviewing closed circuit TV of the pipelines for defects and to create an inspection log to assist with fats, oils, and grease programs, and to assist in 2 semi-annual compliance reports as required. Cost of this is $250,000 funded by the Water Pollution Control Authority. This is part of DEEP's general permit for discharge of stormwater from small municipal separated storm sewer systems. Entertain a motion to approve this expenditure.
So moved, Saliciano.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Alvarez. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on to Layden Industries Beach Street Roadway Improvements Phase 2. City of West Haven awarded Layden Industries the Beach Street Roadway Improvements Phase 2 project for $4,800,523.50 back in April of 2023. City is requesting approval of a change order number 4, for $465,925.89 relating to the Beach Street project. This is funded by bonding and a DECD grant. Questions about the Beach Street roadway improvements?
Why is the change order required?
I'm not sure. Abdul is here, but it was a water main was the depth of a water main was different than what was on the plans, and the road had to be dug up and repaved, or the water main had to be brought to a correct depth. But Abdul Qadir is on. I'm not sure if he can give any more context or not.
Change orders often happen when specifications are not what they're supposed to be. So I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Seconded by, I think that was Ms. Hammersley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We'll move on then. Motion carries. We'll move on to New England Smart Energy Group LLC, a grant subaward to energize public education and outreach program. In partnership with the UI company, United Illuminating, City of West Haven did seek proposals from qualified firms to plan and execute public education and outreach campaign to increase participation in energy efficiency programs. 2 proposals were received. After reviewing the proposals, the city is seeking to award the project for an energy efficiency program to New England Smart Energy LLC of Fairfield, Connecticut for $50,000, funded out of the Community Partnership Initiative grant. Where's this grant come? Moved by Mr. Luciano. Who gives you the Community Partnership Initiative grant?
This was in partnership. No, this was a grant that the city received in partnership with UI.
Okay.
So as Mr. Secretary mentioned during the write-up, this is really a service for multifamily units that have an income eligibility that will go through an efficiency and assessment audit, basically, of their multifamily or multi-business dwellings to see what they qualify for as an energy efficiency upgrade within that building or home. So this was the city partner with UI on this $50,000 grant.
Good program. Need to do more of that. Did Mr. Luciano make a motion? I think he did, and we had a second from Ms. Weiselberg. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We will move on to the Village Improvement Association, the Blake Building purchase and remediation and renovation using ARPA funds. We've had some discussion of this already. At the June 24 meeting, the City Council authorized creation of an Allentown Library ARPA project by using $1 million of ARPA funds. City Council also appropriated to the Village Improvement Association of West Haven Incorporated up to $1 million. This appropriation is to assist in the funding of the purchase of the real property containing a building and related repurposing costs for an Allentown library. City is seeking approval of an ARPA subaward agreement between the City of West Haven and the Village Improvement Association of West Haven, the subrecipient, for an appropriation of $1 million. Approved activities for the appropriation consist of the purchase, remediation, and renovation of the Blake Building at 66 Tetlow Street in West Haven for the Allentown branch of the West Haven Public Library System.
Motion to approve.
Got a
Second.
motion seconded by Mr. Alvarez. Any further discussion? Mr. Hamilton.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding this correctly, this building was originally owned by the city and then transferred to the library and now is coming back to the city. And if that's
No.
correct, no, is that not correct?
That's
No,
not
this
correct.
building was owned by the city and then it was purchased by a Shoreline Wellness
Oh,
who
Shoreline Wellness.
was unable
Okay.
to do the remediation, just wasn't able to pull it together. So the Allentown Library, which was sold by the city, was looking to relocate, and this became a good opportunity for them to relocate in the same area where they were before.
So my question is, when you sold the property, what were the proceeds from that sale? Was it the same as the $1 million that you're proposing to buy it back for?
No, it was much less. It was much less. We
I
sold
thought it was
the
in the
property.
vicinity of like
It was
250,000.
160 in that area, I think.
Due to the remediation that was needed.
Okay, so they've done remediation or contractually are required to do remediation as part of this deal?
So yeah, the $1 million is for nothing will be awarded to the Village Improvement Association until a contract for sale is executed. We will then reimburse them for the sale cost and then advance the money for the asbestos remediation and renovation, but not to exceed $1 million.
Okay, and I guess same question, but sort of the one that Susan Weisselberg asked, which is, how confident are you in the remediation cost here? And, I don't think the Village Improvement Association, I don't know what their assets are, but do they really have the financial wherewithal? If this is really a $2 million remediation, where is that going to leave you?
So yeah, the Village Improvement Association is confident that they have the funds within their association to complete any renovations that are needed.
We have extensive testing.
Yeah.
Extensive.
Yeah, so the $1 million is what when the purchase was made by Shoreline Wellness, the $1 million is where the approximately $1 million is where the remediation cost landed then. And they were just not able to financially and physically handle the remediation. So they saw an opportunity to sell and get get out of this investment. And the Village Improvement Association found an opportunity to land another library in Allentown.
Mr. Luciano.
Reason I suggested and made a motion to approve is it seems like regardless of the wisdom of selling the school or not, you have a mental health organization that doesn't have the ability to fix it, and you have a library that doesn't have a home. So I think the reason why I made the motion to approve is because this would fix both issues. It would provide a library and it would provide the mental health services to be able to stay in the community.
Correct.
Further discussion?
Did
Is there a
Mr.
motion?
Luciano already make the
I did.
motion?
I already made the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hammersley. Mr. Hamilton.
I'm sorry, one more question. The source of the funding, is this ARPA funds, or what is the source of the
Yes.
funding again?
Yes,
So,
it's an ARPA
so the-
subrecipient agreement.
so I guess the long and the short of it is you need to get this committed now and get this going in order to use
Yes.
these funds for this purpose. Yeah. Okay. I mean,
Yes.
I'm a little, my preference frankly would be to table it and make sure that, you know, you've got all the costs covered and so on, but I'm reluctant to do that simply because of the fact you're trying to get the ARPA funds committed, and I'm, you know, certainly supportive of the goal here of, you know, of addressing your library and the mental health program, you know, so I've got no objection whatsoever with the goal. I'm just a little uncomfortable that you've got everything fully vetted, if you will, or the board, you know, maybe you do, but I don't have 100% confidence that we do. But I guess I'll, you know, sort of take my cue from the other board members if no one else has any concerns or feels, you know, given the sort of the exigency of the need to get ARPA funds committed and just go forward with it. And if there's any problems down the road, I'm sure we'll hear about it. So,
Ms. Weiselberg.
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Luciano, but also Mr. Hamilton. And I plan to vote for this, but I'd love a report back on where you are on costs as it proceeds, and the resources that the Village Improvement Association of West Haven actually has when it comes time for renovation, so that we're prepared.
We can have someone from the Village Improvement Association on our next meeting if you'd like. That's that, or our subcommittee meeting to present to you guys as well. That would be fine.
Yeah, subcommittee to me is fine. I just want to make sure that you're not walking into something where they come back and say, we need $4 million from the city.
No, there will be no additional funding from the city for this. This is the Village Improvement Association project, to which the city is contributing the $1 million for the sale and remediation. After that, this is a Village Improvement Association project.
Thank you.
But I'll bring the Village Improvement Association to the next meeting just so they can reiterate that point to you as well, their understanding of that point as well.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Kennison.
In the ARPA committee, don't you review the financials as one of their requirements when you make the decision for the ARPA funds? If I recall.
Yeah, Ken Carney's on. He can speak if you'd like, Ken, he's the chairman
Yes.
of our ARPA committee.
Right.
Ken Carney here. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So the library has access to their own funds as well as several grants. And it's a chicken and egg thing. They can't negotiate the final sale of that building until ARPA funds are committed, and they can't access their grants for remodeling until they actually own the building. And one thing to consider is that most of the building has already been gutted. And when a private entity guts a building, they do it for 40% less than what the city can do it for. So the best path and the least expensive path is for the library to buy that building, finish whatever little remediation is left, and then use their resources to place the library there, as well as the mental health facility.
Other questions? We do have a motion and a second to approve this item. Are we able to vote on that? Sounds like we are. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much, City of West Haven, and all who joined us today. The next item, before we take up our last item, I'll just report that the regularly scheduled meeting for September 12 is going to be moved to October 3rd. It'll be a special meeting, and we'll be at the Legislative Office Building. Yes, ma'am?
I want to make sure we have a quorum for that meeting
Yes.
at this moment. Thank you.
Yes. If folks who are going to attend, please let us know so we can ensure we'll have a quorum for that day. 3rd of October at the LOB. With that, the last item on our agenda is to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Sal Luciano.
Seconded by
Second.
Mr. Hamilton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All
Thank you,
opposed?
everyone.
All right, we'll see you soon. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.